After the series I made discussing used cars you should never buy, I've gotten tons of comments of people saying you should make a list like this except with newer cars on the market. Now a quick disclaimer again before we get into this video. If you do buy or have one of these cars, I'm not saying that it's going to have all the problems that I list. It could not have any of them, which is obviously good, or it could have more than what I list. But these are just the most common problems among each of these models. So let's get started. And the first car on the list is the Fiat 500L. So aside from being one of the most hideous cars ever produced, the Fiat 500L suffers from more than just its design flaws. You can pick one of these up new for less than $25,000. I think they start right at about $21,000, which seems like an enticing deal. However, in typical Italian fashion, this Fiat will probably give you a lot of problems. Current owners of the 500L have quoted saying that they regret their purchase and have had to deal with a large variety of issues. So some of those issues were a slipping transmission, electronic issues, stiff ride, uncomfortable seats, and really bad crash test ratings. Number 2 on the list, and this one hurts me to put on there because I love this car so much, but the Tesla Model X. The Model X is honestly my favorite SUV on the market today, but its ample amounts of technology and showy features have caused it a few problems. The Falcon Wing doors delayed production of the Model S for quite a while. I believe it delayed it by like about 2 years or so, and that was just because they were so complex and engineers were trying to make them as practical as possible, which in the end I think they did accomplish that. But is it really worth it for delaying the production of the car for that long? So like I said, these doors are actually pretty practical, but a lot of people would like to argue with me against that. And speaking of being a practical car, for a car that size, you'd expect it to be very practical and user-friendly and daily drivable for a road trip or whatever you may be doing. The second row seats don't fold, so they fold a little bit, but they don't fold like other cars in its class will. And that's just because of the futuristic design that Tesla used. It doesn't allow you to fully fold the seats. And it does ride fairly well, but it isn't as comfortable as the Model S. The electric range isn't really a problem because Tesla is so good with their batteries, but it can get about as far on a single charge that other cars in its segment would be able to get on a tank of gas. So while the Model X is still full of mass amounts of technology and cool features, just know that you'll be paying a pretty penny for them, and it's going to cost you some practicality. Number 3, the Ford Fiesta. The Fiesta is one of the cheapest new cars you can buy today, especially from an American automaker. These can be found starting at under $15,000 for the base trim model, and it comes in both a hatch and sedan. The Fiesta does have certain aspects going for it. It's a quiet ride, you get good fuel economy, and especially in the hatchback, you get pretty good room and storage. However, the Fiesta is known for having a lot of issues with its clutch, transmission, and bad electronics, and that's part of the reason why it's so cheap. Number 4 on the list is the Chrysler 200. So the Chrysler 200 starts in the mid-20,000s. It does seem like a bargain luxury buy at first glance, but it has been quoted as driving like a car from a previous generation with bad handling and ride quality. So the quality of ride and how it handles and drives, it just isn't up to par with other cars in its class. The transmission is bad, there's no other way to really put it. The 4-cylinder is lackadaisical, but there is some potential with that V6 option, especially if you do get all-wheel drive. Chrysler has a pretty bad history in my used cars you should never buy series, and I think that the Chrysler 200 will just be another car to add to that list in the future. Number 5, the Jeep Renegade. The Renegade is a car I've always thought was hideous and useless, but that's not the only reason why it's on this list. It has a sluggish and annoying 9-speed transmission that not only has twice as many speeds as it needs, but is also slow and rough. It doesn't come standard with many off-road features, but upgrading to the Trailhawk variant will make the car much more capable. It doesn't really feature anything special in terms of technology or other features, and I would personally spend my money elsewhere. Number 6 on the list is the Chevrolet Tahoe and GMC Yukon. So these two are pretty much the identical car with just different body panels and maybe a couple other different things, so that's why they're included together. Tahoes and Yukons have base prices in the mid $40,000 range and can be optioned well into the 60s. I personally feel as though that's too much for an SUV with its features and brand name, but that's not really the only problem that I have with it. They can be very practical and can tow more than you'd imagine, but the 5.3 liter V8 powering the Tahoe and Yukon is a true gas guzzler. Expect mid-teens for fuel economy, which is just absolutely garbage. It is generally a quiet ride, but owners have complained of bad power equipment and electronics, a stiff ride, and steering vibrations as well. Number 7 on the list is the Chevrolet Suburban and GMC Yukon XL. So for those of you who are unaware, the Suburban and Yukon XL are just the bigger versions of the Tahoe and the Yukon. So that means that more storage space, a little bit higher of a sticker price, and not really anything else. So the same problems with the Yukon and Tahoe exist with the Suburban and XL, so I won't really bother repeating them, but just know that they have the same issues. Number 8 on the list is the Cadillac Escalade. So the Escalade, again, pretty much the same thing, just a more luxurious version of the Tahoe and Yukon. The luxury does come at a high premium, meaning the base model Escalade will cost you well into the $70,000 range. It does come standard with a 420 horsepower V8, but that's just one of the few bright spots. It has a rough shifting transmission that sometimes needs to be replaced at low miles. Interior room really isn't the best for an SUV of its size. The seats are fairly stiff and cramped in the back rows, and it really doesn't ride well for a quote-unquote luxury SUV. Number 9 on the list is the Ram 2500. The Ram 2500 is trying to compete with an already extremely competitive and impressive truck class. This heavy-duty Ram comes standard with a 5.7 liter V8, or you can have the Cummins turbo diesel in it. Gas mileage with either engine won't really be the best, but that's to be expected. The 2500 has been reported to have problems with various controls and sensors, certain electronics, the four-wheel drive system, and steering. Last on the list is the Ford Focus. The Ford Focus comes in either a sedan or hatchback, and it seems like a good buy at first. However, I would probably put my money in a more reliable car that's similarly priced. The Focus of this generation has an overall poor transmission and a weak clutch. It's jerky at low speeds and is often rough shifting. Power from the non-performance models really is abysmal. The ST and RS hatches are much better, and I personally really do like both of those. They don't really share any of the problems that I just listed about the normal Focus. And it does come with a fair amount of features standard, but it really isn't going to give you the best bang for your buck, in my mind at least. So there you have it, guys, 10 new cars you should never buy. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I might make a part 2 if you guys liked it enough. And if you do have one of these cars, comment down below, tell us about your ownership experience. I'm really curious to hear. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all next video.